Serious tattoo artists. What was your worst mistake and how did the client react? I was getting tattooed by my artist one time. I had been tattooed by him exclusively for over 10 years at that point. There was a girl getting tattooed at the next station over with a talkative friend. The friend was talking about her speepty tattoo on the back of her neck. It was supposed to be a genie lamp, but looked more like a speepty teapot as she described it. She says something about her hometown. And my artist perks up, as that's where he was from. He asks what shop did it? And his eyes widened briefly. He asks to see it and she shows him. He said, "You don't recognize me?" Huh? She shook her head no. He said, "I'm really sorry for the way that looks. That was done by me and it was one of my first tattoos ever. Take a look at my calendar. Put your name and number in one of the 4-hour slots. And tell me what you want so I can fix it. Sorry you've had to wear that for so long." He covered it for her, I forget with what, and she was very happy. He felt much better about it too. The city they were both from was over 600 miles away. Pretty small chance they'd ever see each other like that. Worked as a piercer in a shop a decade ago. A guy came in and wanted Murphy's Law artist freehand to design on him. He greenlit it after watching in the mirror and they did a beautiful piece with a banner saying Murphy's Law. Seemed fitting. The guy loved the fact that his one messed up tattoo was the Murphy's Law one. I was a receptionist at a tattoo shop. One of the artists misspelled neighborhood on this guy's neck. He spelled it neighborhood, leaving out the first H. Neighborhood was the guy's nickname. It was a pretty large, elaborate tattoo, so there was no fixing it. I don't think I have ever cringed so hard in my life. The guy was surprisingly really cool about it. He did see the drawing and approved it before it was tattooed on. He ended up making the artist tattoo a H on his palm, so if anyone gave him speep about the misspelling he could smack that person with the missing H. A few years ago I was tattooing a client who had apparently lost a bet. His buddies were allowed to tattoo something behind his shoulder as long as it wasn't racist or offensive. Turns out the guy drew up a design of a leprechaun throwing up on a book. Sure. Why not? Everyone was sober and they were paying pounds up front. Easy work. The drawing was really simple and the shading was easier than I thought it'd be. Turns out everyone liked it. Except the guy with the tattoo of a leprechaun throwing up on a book. He picked at the scab, trying to get rid of it. Completely took it from bad to worse. Comes in about 10 days later, demanding a refund of money he didn't pay or the studio. Not me. Cover it up. Nope. Management said you signed for it in your right mind and then damaged it yourself. Personally, I was yelled at and told never tattoo anyone like that. It only works in television series or film. Did I make a mistake? Yes and no. The lesson here is don't get involved in others' drama when permanent body marking are involved. I had a client email me asking for a set of initials. I don't do freehand script, so I put the initials into a font generator and sent him back some options. He picked the one he liked best and we set an appointment date. On the day of his session, I showed him the initials again and we chose a size. I placed the stencil and he approved it and I got started. Midway through the tattoo I asked him what the letters stood for and he told me. My heart stopped. The initials were in the wrong order. I ran to the shop computer to check my email and sure enough, in his original email he'd sent me, they'd been correct. I had typed them into the font generator wrong. But to be fair, he had seen them several times since then and didn't notice my mistake. I spent the rest of the session covering them up with another design he'd had as a backup idea and I didn't charge him. But it was a good learning experience for me to always ask what initials stand for ahead of time to make sure I get them in the right order. I was working at a place when a guy came in for a full back piece of 3 different cars. It took like 4 visits to finish, and each visit he'd look at it and say it looks awesome, and then he would take off. On the last visit, they call me in to look at it to show me how awesome it turned out. Well, all the steering wheels were on the wrong side, and the reason no one caught it was because the dude was looking in a mirror to check his progress so they looked correct. I'm pretty sure the guy was super chill about it when they offered a bunch of free work and they fixed it in another session. My ex did a large scarification on the client's abdomen. The client had brought in a piece of paper with the stylized word "preserve rents." I was invited in midway to see the progress and had to tap my ex on the shoulder for a spelling lesson. I gave a guy a tattoo in prison of his girlfriend's name on his arm. I knew him on the street and his girl and knew it was going nowhere, and insisted he change his mind. He didn't. So I made a bet with him that Speep was gonna go belly up within 6 months. When we got out of segregation and back onto the yard, a few weeks passed at most, and I can see him having a bad conversation on the phone. He called me over to his cell and offered me up a huge peeping sack of commissary without a word. I didn't take it. Figured he needed it more than me. Still feel like Speep to this day. Once had a client call the shop who was crying hysterically because, according to her, I had done her tattoo backwards. It took a few minutes to get her to calm down to the point where we realized she was looking at it in the mirror. She apologized and hung up. Edit: thanks for the upvotes and awards. You're all too kind. I got a tat from an apprentice once and the process was rough. I was his 4th customer and he had a mentor guiding him. By guiding I mean roasting everything he was doing. It was a fairly simple Sailor Jerry pinup, maybe 3 colors. The guide made him use 6 colors. Like the skin color on it is skin colored ink. It took 5 hours. The whole time the guide is saying stuff like, "Why the FCK did you pick that color next?" Or "No. No. No. Don't do that, you'll FCK up his arm forever." It was constant and brutal. The artist was a friend and I was really feeling for him, but also myself, cause my arm felt like ground hamburger by the end. 10-ish years later and it still looks awesome. He did a great job and went on to be a respected tattoo artist in the area. All's well that ends well, but I was nervous AF while it healed to see what it would look like. I was doing a big old tattoo of Cringer aka Battle Cat on a really cool client's leg. I got so into doing this big, awesome tiger head that I forgot that it wasn't a goddamn tiger and colored the stripes black. I realized about a third of the way through filling them in and let the guy know. He was disappointed, but mostly okay with it. I felt like I was going to puke. I finished the thing feeling so peeping sick and then refused payment. Man. Going from that feeling of elation to immediate crushing disappointment was hard to shake. And kind of dazed me. It was extra crushing because it was a fun tattoo during a time when I wasn't that busy and was doing mostly absolute dreck. The payment was just the icing on the top. So letting that go was hard too. Ugh. Just thinking about it now is making me feel sick. So I didn't mess up, but I had a client scare me. I was tattooing his sister's name on him. She passed away. Gabriella with 1 L in it. Past the point of no return, he asks me, "There's 2 L's. Right?" I think I had a heart attack. And he started laughing. He thought it was hilarious. I died a little and pretended to laugh. I've never really made any big mistakes that garnered a reaction. But one of my clients has a tattoo from another artist in a local studio that says "Greydad" instead of "Granddad." The studio fired the artist and wouldn't take any responsibility for what had happened. I was getting a wraparound ankle piece of a beach scene. The artist is one who had done most of my other tattoos. He was freehanding most of it. At one point, He hit a really sensitive spot and I involuntarily kicked. Oops. Well, that's a rock now, is all he said, and made it blend in seamlessly with the rest of the piece. I had a client who decided he wanted lettering on his forearms. Sayings in Greek and Hebrew. He doesn't speak either language. But he had one of his friends double-check the spelling before he sent the references to me. Came in. We did the tattoos. Pretty simple appointment. Fast forward to a couple weeks later. I get a message from my client about the tattoo that was done in Hebrew. He owns a small construction/restoration company. And has a few Israeli guys who work for him. Apparently, they were giving him a lot of speep for his Hebrew tattoo. He originally thought they were just messing with him. Because it was spelled wrong. The font he had chosen off a quick Google search essentially changed a couple of the letters, kinda like the difference between an F and a T, making it a completely different word. We ended up being able to fix it pretty easily and had a good laugh about it. But definitely beware when you're getting tattoos in a language you and your artist don't speak.